The hidden cost structure. Most founders believe they understand their costs. They know payroll, they know rent, they know subscriptions, tools, marketing spend, and overhead. Those numbers are visible. They're easy to point to. They're familiar. And because they're familiar, they feel complete. But the most influential costs in a business are often not the ones you can list. They don't show up neatly on a report. They don't trigger warnings. They don't cause immediate problems. Instead, they quietly shape how the business feels to run. They influence how heavy decisions feel. They influence how confident leadership feels. They influence whether growth feels exciting or exhausting. These are the hidden costs most founders never learn to see. Cost is not just spending. One of the biggest misunderstandings in business is thinking that cost equals expense. An expense is what you pay. A cost is what the business absorbs. Absorption happens everywhere. Time spent clarifying. Energy spent fixing. Attention spent managing complexity. Opportunity spent waiting. These costs never appear as line items, yet they determine how profitable a business truly is. You can control expenses perfectly and still bleed margin through invisible behavior. Because cost is not just financial, it's behavioral. The cost of founder intervention. One of the most expensive assets in any business is the founder's attention. But founder attention is often treated as unlimited. When founders regularly step in to clarify decisions, resolve misunderstandings, fix recurring issues, bridge gaps between teams, they are quietly compensating for structure. Each moment feels helpful, necessary, even responsible. But over time, this compensation becomes a hidden operating model. The business doesn't learn to function without intervention. It learns to rely on it. And that reliance becomes expensive. Founder intervention costs don't show up as payroll. They show up as exhaustion. They show up as leaders who feel constantly on. They show up as businesses that can't move without approval. They show up as growth that increases pressure instead of freedom. This is not a leadership flaw. It's a structural one. The cost of rework is one of the most underestimated costs in business. Redoing work, re-explaining expectations, fixing preventable errors, clarifying things that were already discussed. Each instance feels small, but rework compounds. It consumes labor hours, focus, morale, leadership, energy. Because the work eventually gets done, the cost is dismissed. But the business pays for the same outcome multiple times. That's not efficiency. That's erosion. The cost of complexity. Complexity feels intelligent. More tools, more workflows, more customization. At first, complexity feels like control. But complexity has a cost behavior most founders underestimate. It slows decisions, increases error rates, requires explanation, demands oversight. Every exception becomes a tax. Every workaround becomes a liability. And complexity scales faster than revenue. What starts as flexibility becomes fragility. Processes become harder to maintain. Teams become dependent on specific people. Leadership becomes the glue holding everything together. And glue is expensive. The cost of delay is one of the most dangerous hidden costs because it feels passive. Delayed decisions, delayed payments, delayed clarity, delayed action. Delay doesn't feel like loss until you realize what didn't happen because of it. Opportunities postponed, momentum lost, energy drained. Delay creates opportunity cost, and opportunity cost compounds silently. You never see it on a report, but you feel it in stagnation. Why revenue hides these costs. As long as revenue keeps coming in, hidden costs stay hidden. The business adapts. The team compensates. The founder absorbs. Nothing breaks. And because nothing breaks, nothing changes. Revenue becomes camouflage. It masks inefficiency. It hides strain. It delays necessary design decisions. This is why businesses often feel heavier as they grow. Growth amplifies cost behavior. Growth does not create hidden costs. It amplifies them. Rework scales. Complexity multiplies. Delays become more expensive. Founder intervention becomes unsustainable. What once felt manageable becomes draining. Not because growth is wrong, but because the cost structure was never designed for scale. Cost behavior shapes leadership. Hidden costs don't just reduce profit. They shape leadership behavior. They shorten planning horizons. They increase caution. They create decision fatigue. Leaders feel pressure they can't name, so they respond by playing it safe, working harder, staying involved longer, not because they lack confidence, but because clarity is missing. When cost behavior is invisible, leadership becomes reactive. When cost behavior is visible, leadership becomes intentional. Visibility changes everything. When hidden costs become visible, something shifts. Decisions feel lighter. Trade-offs become clearer. Priorities sharpen, not because the business suddenly improves, but because misunderstanding disappears. Clarity removes emotional weight, and with clarity, confidence returns. Designing for cost behavior. Strong businesses don't just manage expenses. They design for cost behavior. They ask, how does this scale? What does this demand from leadership? Where does effort substitute for structure? They don't optimize numbers blindly. They optimize flow. They understand that profitability is not just what's earned. It's what isn't drained away. Why this is rarely taught. Most founders are taught how to sell, how to market, how to grow revenue. Very few are taught how cost behaves over time. Even fewer are taught how hidden cost affects leadership capacity. So founders blame themselves. They think, I should be more disciplined. I should be better at managing. I should be able to handle this. But this isn't about personal capacity. It's about system design. The shift from management to design. When founders stop managing symptoms and start designing systems, everything changes. They stop absorbing friction. They stop compensating for gaps. They stop carrying unnecessary weight. The business becomes lighter, not because it's smaller, but because it's clearer. What long-term winners do differently. The businesses that last don't just grow revenue. They reduce invisible drag. They protect leadership energy. They simplify structure. They shorten decision cycles. They design businesses that support growth instead of fighting it. Final reflection. If growth feels heavier than expected, the issue may not be sales. It may not be effort. It may not be discipline. It may be the cost structure you're not seeing. The behaviors shaping decisions, the friction shaping momentum, the invisible tax shaping leadership energy. Once those costs are visible, businesses stop reacting and start designing for stability. And stability is what allows growth to feel sustainable instead of stressful. There is also a quiet emotional cost to hidden cost structures that rarely gets discussed. When leaders constantly compensate for inefficiency, they begin to doubt their own judgment. Decisions that should feel straightforward start to feel risky. Even small choices carry weight because the system underneath doesn't feel stable. This is where confidence erodes. Not because leaders are unsure of their vision, but because the business environment keeps sending mixed signals. Revenue suggests success. Daily pressure suggests fragility. That contradiction creates mental friction, and mental friction slows leadership more than any external obstacle. Over time, leaders stop trusting momentum. They wait for confirmation. They second-guess progress. They delay decisions that could move the business forward simply because the cost structure feels unpredictable. When hidden costs are brought into the open, that tension dissolves. Leaders stop carrying uncertainty alone. Decisions regain their context. Growth becomes something to guide instead of something to brace for. This shift isn't about working harder or being more disciplined. It's about restoring alignment between what the numbers say and how the business actually feels to run. And that alignment is what turns effort into momentum instead of exhaustion.